My name is Lex, and this week on the season premiere of Spidey Signals, me and my co host Alex discuss Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's Spider Man Blue, the merits of joining the military, and the colors of nostalgia. Get ready to fall in love, because it's time for Spidey Signals. Welcome back to Spidey Signals, the podcast where two guys with the same name talk about Spider-Man. I'm Lex.
And I am Alex.
It's been a hot minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a bit. I mistakenly said to a friend the other day that, oh yeah, we tapered off doing the last season in like April. And then I checked back the other day to listen through, and no, we ended in January, so I don't know
No, we ended back in January.
where my brain was with that. But yeah, it feels a lot. It feels like it's been a lot longer than it has been, even with my like slip up there. I missed it, honestly. I love babbling about Spider-Man, so welcome back to that.
Yeah, this has been a really, really fun thing, and I love doing this podcast. And we're here. We're back. It's season 2.
Hmm.
Uh, we've got a packed schedule. If you haven't seen our Twitter, we got 15 episodes as opposed to the 11 we had last season. We got more guests. It's all leading up to Spider-Man: No Way Home, which will come out. The episode of which will come out a week after the movie comes out, so that we
Hmm.
have time to do stuff. So let's run down our season 2 schedule really quick. So this episode, obviously, we're talking about Spider-Man Blue. Episodes 2 through 5, we're going to be talking about the spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. We're going to be breaking up both seasons into individual parts. So, season 1, part 1, season 1, part 2, and so on and so forth. Episode 6, my good friend Jackson will be joining us to talk about Craven's Last Hunt, which is going to be really exciting. For episode 7, we'll be talking about the 1977 made-for-TV Spider-Man movie with Nicholas Hammond,
Sick.
with Alex's friend Robert.
Very much looking forward to having him on. He knows his stuff. He's a bit of a connoisseur of shitty '70s media. It's going to be a fun one to discuss.
After that, we've got The Clone Saga, which is going to be very exciting because a lot of these in this lineup I haven't actually seen. Like, I've never seen Spectacular Spider-Man. I haven't watched the 77 movie. I haven't read The Clone
Hmm.
Saga. It's going to be exciting to go from last season where I had seen every movie on there to now getting into sort of uncharted waters.
Very much the same for me. Clone Saga is a personal favorite, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
I'm excited to see it because I really like Ben Reilly's costume when he becomes Spider-Man. I talked about that last
He's
season,
the only Marvel Legends figure I've got, actually, is Scarlet Spider.
but I'm excited to see what he's all about. After that, we've got another guest episode, Toei Spider-Man with returning guest Brian Alexander.
Yeah, he's big into kaiju Toei stuff. He's gonna have a lot to say about this, I imagine. We're gonna watch there's a lot of it. There's like 50 something episodes, right?
Yeah,
So
something like that.
we're just gonna pick and choose some highlights, maybe some fan favorites, that kind of thing. Just some stuff to discuss.
We're gonna have him pick a couple episodes to talk about and have him sort of be our tour guide through this. Then episode 10 is a smaller episode, just to get us a break from the big long comic arcs and stuff. We're going to talk about The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, which is a theme park ride at Universal Studios.
It sure is. That'll be a fun little breather of an episode.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to talk about that because I love that ride. Then we're
Mhm.
going to be talking about Spider-Man: The New Animated Series, the MTV CGI cartoon that came out a little bit after the first Raimi movie, but before the second Raimi movie, with Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man. Fucking oh yeah, Lisa Loeb plays Mary Jane
Oh
Watson.
my God, that's incredible.
Uh, and there's like the Rob Zombie is the Lizard.
Okay, sure, whatever. Fuck it. I'm now looking forward to it.
We're getting sidetracked. Yeah, I'm excited to look into that because I've heard a lot of weird things about it, and it takes place in like a universe like post Spider-Man 1, the movie. So that's all canon, but Spider-Man 2 hasn't come out yet, so they like sort of like free jazz it out with all the characters and stuff. It's really interesting to see what will do with that stuff.
Absolutely.
And then after that, we've got a double feature of two comic mini series, sort of story arcs that both tie into each other, and one of which ties in to No Way Home, which was very surprising. We're looking at Back in Black and One More Day.
One More Day is kind of reviled by the fan base, to say the least. I don't know anybody that likes it, let alone would call it their favorite. And it's really weird to see both Lex and I have separately and together we've said like, oh God, it's really from the one like major trailer we've gotten so far for No Way Home. It really looks like they're going to be pulling elements of like the idea of everybody forgetting that Peter and Spider-Man are the same person, life-changing magic elements, that kind of thing. uh, I've really enjoyed what they've done with MCU Spider-Man so far, so it's interesting to see them like have this winning horse in this race and go, okay, let's possibly cripple it by by infusing this here. But I'm in. I'll be there. I'm gonna see it.
Yeah, it's like a fan servicey One More Day is not what I expected this movie to be, but this is the universe that we live in.
Hmm.
So that's going to be really interesting. The next episode after that, we're going to be talking about the Broadway sensation Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark with my friend B.
This is gonna be possibly the Amazing Spider-Man 2 of this season, I think.
I don't know. I know for a fact before going into that, I know that there are two completely different versions of the show. Like they rewrote it in the middle of previews.
Mm,
There's obviously music from Bono and The Edge.
Jesus Christ.
It's gonna be a whole fucking odyssey, and I think B's got his own little tricks he's got cooked up for that episode. So I'm excited for that. Then we've
Yeah,
got the
very much.
Master Planner saga, which is, if I believe, Amazing Spider-Man 31, 32, and 33. That's sort of at the tail end of the Lee Ditko run, generally considered to be sort of the high watermark of that run. I haven't read it in a long time, so I'm excited to get back into it and just remember how good of a story that is. And that will be coming out on the day that No Way Home releases, December 17th, but we record it earlier. So we're going to be at the movie theater when that episode comes out. And then
Hmm.
obviously the season finale, Christmas Eve, we're talking about Spider Man No Way Home. Uh, I've said this about a million times. I am excited to get into this shit.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a big weird season ahead of us, and I really like that. Not saying I didn't have fun with season one, because I did, but there's just this like sense of unfamiliarity with a lot of this material, like an exciting unfamiliarity. I've read about half of it, maybe seen a lot less than that. Actually, most of the visual stuff we're watching here, I've not seen. I've ridden the ride. That's about it.
Yeah.
This is gonna be great. I actually watched the spectacular pilot last night, enjoyed that, but we'll get there next week.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
see.
right here, right now, we are with Spider-Man Blue.
That is correct. Spider-Man Blue is a comic miniseries that was released in 6 issues from 2002 to April 2003. It was written by Jeff Loeb, who is best known for doing a lot of TV work. He produced and wrote for Smallville and Lost and Heroes. Uh, for a while, I don't know if he is still now, but he was the vice president of Marvel Television. So he worked on like the Netflix shows, and I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that. Also, he is notably a massive racist to a lot of the Asian cast in Daredevil and in Iron Fist. So that's great.
Marvel has a weird little track record with stuff like that. He's a separate guy from the guy that was pretending to be Asian and wrote comics, right? That's a different guy.
Yeah, he wrote for Cracked. I don't know if he ever wrote anything for Marvel, but who knows. But getting away from that, who isn't a massive racist as far as we know? Tim Sale, who did the artwork for this comic. He's mostly known for working with Loeb, specifically on the iconic Batman: The Long Halloween. but he's also done other stuff like Superman for All Seasons and the other Marvel Colors series. There's Captain America White and Hulk Gray and Daredevil Yellow. Daredevil Yellow in particular is very, very good along with this. The lettering was done by Wes Abbott and Richard Starkings. And finally, the colors on this comic were done by Steve Buccellato. I hope I'm saying that right. But Alex, do you have any sort of personal experiences with this comic before you read it?
There was a point where I thought I had read this complete thing in the past, but it had turned out I'd only read part of it. And me being who I am, I'm a big like fiend for canon and knowing the whole story. And when it comes to even stuff I like and even stuff I don't like, a lot of times I'll just read a synopsis if I care enough. I've read so many things about movies I've never even seen, and that's just how I am. I being also who I am, I'm familiar with the characters in this story and the experiences they've had before, during, and after this story. So it's not like it was some great new groundbreaking thing I read and learned. But at the same time, having read this for the first time all the way through for the podcast, despite knowing the major plot beats of it, it still did a number on me, like as a reader. Really enjoyed it. So no real like deep personal experiences to speak of, but I am intending to get a physical copy of it as soon as I can for the comic shelf. Very very like I like it a lot as a longtime Spider-Man guy.
Yeah. When I first read this comic back in, I think like I want to say like 2018, back when I was getting back into Spider-Man again. I read it online and I loved it, and then I got the trade paperback and I read it again and again and again. I've read it many, many times. I love this comic so much, and I'm very excited to just sort of jump right into it. So, Alex,
Mhm.
can you tell us the plot of Spider-Man Blue?
Absolutely. It's broken up across 6 issues, about 20-ish, 22 pages each. So it's a pretty concise story. It goes pretty quickly. It takes place over two parts in the timeline, really. Peter is sitting down in the present day, which would be a good number of years after the Gwen Stacy death incident. He's
Yeah,
married to
this
MJ at
is
this point.
this is they're married, they're living in a house together, the whole 9 yards.
The present day is there, and most of the story is told in the past via a series of like flashback vignettes while Peter is speaking into Uncle Ben's old tape recorder about his past, especially regarding his feelings about Gwen Stacy. He's essentially doing a little like remembrance thing. He leaves a rose on the bridge every year. We get a great little opening with that, him swinging through and leaving the rose on the top, and it falls in the water as he soliloquies to us.
I love that little rose moment. I think it's really good.
It's really good. The rose is actually just about the only thing in the present day that isn't blue. Everything in the present is told in blue tones, while the flashbacks are told in really, great, fantastic Spider-Man color. Um, he's reminiscing into the tape recorder about how on Valentine's Day he goes every year to the location where Gwen lost her life, uh, and that takes him down the road of remembering Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, who we get this our little opening action sequence with just some great like quip dialogue. Norman has Peter tied to a chair, unmasked, and he's talking, rambling about revealing his identity to the world. um, Peter springs out of the chair, beats the crap out of him.
I love the dialogue in this comic, all the quips and all the later super dramatic dialogue. I really, really love how
Yeah,
snappy it all is, how well it's written. And the action is also really, really great. There's a couple of very a lot of the action sequences in this comic are like short, but they have a lot of impact and punch, and a lot of that is Tim Sale's very dynamic and, well, like I said, punchy artwork.
yeah. There's just about a big centerpiece fight sequence in just about every one of these issues, but it's never like, I say centerpiece, but it's never what the issue is about. This is a very talky comic. This is a very feely comic. It just happens to have a big fight in just about every issue. But that's a great Spider-Man balance there. That's what you would hope up for, I think, ideally. Um, and one thing, like we were talking about with the dialogue, this comic gets right a lot is characterization. The great Goblin moments, great Spider-Man moments all the way throughout. I especially like in this first fight, uh, when the Green Goblin just brings up how much of a loser Harry is, and Peter's like, yeah, okay, whatever, and makes some offhand comment about Harry, and the Goblin retorts like, "Don't bring up my son," and it's like, you did it first. Peter brings that up on the very next page. It's really funny. I don't know. I like that moment.
Yeah, it's great.
Peter does eventually defeat the Goblin in battle, knocking Norman out so hard that he is rendered into classic comic book amnesia, supposedly. Uh, Pulls his mask off of him. We get a great little, "Oh, what's going on? Where's Harry? What are these
Yeah, he
clothes?"
gets
moment.
he gets 60s comic book amnesia, which is very, very good.
It's the most convenient kind of amnesia. Um, Peter has a little hero moment where he, debates what's going on here internally and decides to turn Norman over to the firefighters and police outside as there's this explosion that's gone on and rendered whatever goblin lair this was. It's a burning building now, and as Peter gets this unconscious Norman out of here and turns him over to authorities that'll help him, he says that Norman helped him kill and defeat the Green Goblin. Well, he doesn't say he helped kill him. He says the Green Goblin is dead. I should specify that. I'm not J. Jonah Jameson. Um, but the Green Goblin is supposedly dead if you believe Spider-Man, and Norman Osborn helped aid in his defeat. We go from this sequence to a great classic Peter at the Daily Bugle situation, asking for an advance from J. Jonah Jameson. Um, Really
Yeah,
unfair pay sequence here with like the
yeah.
stub being issued.
What does he say? He says, "You get paid like any other freelancer, Parker. 2 weeks after you voucher from that given Friday." Just a real like hard ass JJJ moment.
Really, really tough shit, man. Like we get off easy being able to like deposit a check from our phones now. Peter had to work for that shit. Um, we get really great classic J. Jonah Jameson blustering, real good curmudgeon stuff. Like I said, characterization is on point here. Robbie pops up, and a lot of little great continuity stuff here. They mention the upcoming Tony Stark trial. Phil Sheldon gets brought up.
Yeah, Phil
Uh,
Sheldon from Marvels, which is another great little mini series if you've never read it. Got great
I
Alex Ross art.
I've not read it myself, but I've heard you bring it up before. It seems pretty neat. Um, but yeah, we get lots of little classic bugle back and forth. Robbie tells us that Norman Osborn is recovering in a nearby hospital, and there's a photo op to be had there. So rather than sending Phil Sheldon, they send Peter volunteers to go. He's insisting that he take the job, hoping that it'll motivate pay to come his way a little quicker. He gets there and runs into Harry Osborn, who is attending his father's bedside. Harry and Peter don't really know each other very well at this point. They do go on to become best friends. But it's I'd be a little weirded out too if just some guy from my high school was there if my dad had like been goblin assaulted, It'd be a little weird to me. But yeah, Harry's there keeping a vigil over his father's bedside. He has a little dialogue with Peter. And eventually the rest of Harry's gang shows up. We get Flash Thompson and our introduction in this comic to Gwen Stacy, Peter's love. They all kind of, group up for a minute before heading out, and Flash makes a remark about Peter Parker being there. What the hell's going on about that? Harry reassures Flash that Peter's, he's a stand-up guy, he's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't rag on him so hard. And we get a great little like moment where Peter and Gwen have this little lingering gaze, immediately setting him off. There's an immediate connection there. We go from this scene to the Parker household. We all love the Parker house. Very simple little thing, as it should be.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a later on, I don't remember what issue it is. I think it's like issue 4, start of issue 4. There's a really, really nice exterior shot of the Parker house, and I guess now would be a good time for me to talk about one of my notes, which is that the art in this book is really, really good. But
Mhm.
I want to point out like how great the coloring is. Obviously, there's
Absolutely, yeah.
all the blue stuff in the present timeline, but here in the past, it's like there's always like really rich colors that make everything sort of pop out, but also makes it have sort of a it's like sort of a throwback to that classic Ramita style with the
For
bright
sure.
colors and designs, but also there's like sort of a warmth to it that adds that to that sort of like nostalgic feel that Peter has in this moment.
Yeah. Definitely intentionally so, I think. Um, at the Parker house on this day, Peter is pining for a motorcycle is his motivation here. Uh, Makes me, reminds me a bit of the Peter wanting a car so desperately in the Raimi original. Always a wacky motivation to me
It is
in a city where public transit exists in so many forms, besides wall crawling and web slinging. The man is always, for some reason, desperately after wheels. I don't get it.
gotta get those $3,000. Gotta get in the ring. Gotta fight.
Bonesaw Blue. Peter, like any person who wants a motorcycle, decides to tell his elderly aunt this and stress her out with that information that he wants a motorcycle. And in this fantastic little, cute little Aunt May moment, she pulls out this hidden car fund she and Uncle Ben had aside conveniently that never got used up for any kind of, oh no, Aunt needs money plot before. Uh, but there's this great little tender moment where she gives it over to Peter, and he goes to the motorcycle store and purchases a motorcycle on a whim, seeing that Gwen and the others are nearby. Um,
Yeah, and May is not in this comic a whole lot, but every time she is, she's just that really classic sweet old lady Aunt May, and it's really good. They get that Aunt May Peter relationship right.
mhm, mhm. Everything in this comic is correct. I like to say it's just
Yes,
it's just correct. They get it right. And there is so much Spider-Man that does not get it correct out there across all the different mediums. So it's always
it's very
very
rare for it to get every part of it right.
absolutely. It's a well-oiled machine. There's a great sequence here. I know you like this panel a lot of Peter taking Gwen for a ride on the
Yeah,
bike.
this splash page of Peter and Gwen riding on the motorcycle, it's really really good. I think it's ends up closing out the first book.
Mhm.
It's really really good.
Yeah, we're right at the end of book one. We get MJ here. Not Peter's introduction to MJ, but our introduction to this book's version of MJ. Uh, Coming to Peter Parker's home to visit, but Aunt May disappointedly telling her that he is out and to check again later, and that she definitely will. As we move into book two, news is spreading of the Green Goblin's death, and we're introduced to the main antagonist of this. This isn't another like build up to how Gwen Stacy died. That story's been told a whole bunch. They don't touch on it like that event here. The Green Goblin is not the big bad here. It's this mystery gigantoid man in the shadows wearing a fur coat. Uh, Terrorizes a newspaper salesman for a bit. Fun little New York moment there. He finds out that the Green Goblin is supposedly dead and that Spider-Man is responsible, or so says the Daily Bugle. And he sets out to track down Spider-Man. Peter, meanwhile, is at the science lab class with Gwen, kind of seemingly oblivious to her flirting with him, trying to get his attention. Uh, this is Peter Parker though, so like he says he's oblivious, but he's also like actively flirting with her. So I don't know,
And
unreliable narrator maybe.
there's a little bit of Peter's future narration here in this scene where he says you have to understand I was just making the transition from Peter Parker bookworm to Pete's not such a bad guy. And I'm like, yeah, that really did happen in the Ramita era
Huge leap.
where Peter stopped being such like a nebbish bookworm and he started
The
being
wallflower.
the cool popular guy.
Hey, it's
Uh
it's Pito.
Pedo, we'll get to Pedo.
Oh man. Meanwhile, while this class flirtation is happening, we get introduced to the Rhino here. The Rhino is being held in captivity by two guards,
Yeah,
two
he's the way he
two
is.
blue
He's
shirted
he,
guards.
he's sleeping in this like gigantic glass prison that he's in.
Like a
They
cyber
like
cage.
they're constantly pumping in sleeping gas, and there's a giant lever that says "Warning, air flush."
And
And then yeah,
it's not even two like riot guards to anything like that. It's two like blue shirted guts over belts, just donut eating cops. Two very classic New York City beat cops who get their heads clonked together by the mystery guy. He sneaks in, clobbers the guards, and releases the Rhino. Robbie Robertson alerts Peter to the news story of the Rhino's rampage. Rhino, of course, his single motivation here is running around New York City screaming, "Spider-Man! Bring me Spider-Man! I want Spider-Man!" Like to God and anybody that'll listen.
he's like an 8-year-old at a party. He just really wants Spider-Man to be there.
Yeah, he's president of the fan club. He's desperate to fight Spider-Man for some reason. Maybe he was, defeated a little too hard, sore loser. Could be something Mystery Man said to him. But we get our singular motivated Rhino here. There's a great little battle sequence between them. It's fun stuff. Like we've said, the fights move very quickly in this. They don't outstay their welcome, but that doesn't like hamper them either. Normally, some of the pacing gets weird a little later, but this one's fine. Um, they fight and then they separate after a temporary defeat for the Rhino, who Spidey just can't, seem to take down for the count. And as the Rhino flees, he leaves behind a little sample of his super thick, hide, a piece of his
Yeah.
leather, so to speak. So Spider-Man decides to take it to Dr. Curtis Connors.
Oh yeah.
Always great to see him, and I've got to say, out of all the media that I've read and seen and enjoyed Spider-Man wise, this has got to be probably my favorite portrayal of Curtis Connors that I've seen. They get a lot about this character right. I don't mean for every character we bring up to say, oh yeah, characterization, it's great here, but it really is with Curtis Connors here. We get
Yeah.
his great, I don't want to be lizardified again, but I will help with science if it means helping save people stuff.
They give Kurt a lot of dignity here in this comic, and I really, really like that.
For especially as little time as he's here too. They nail everything about him for while he's here.
Yeah, and him and Peter have a really good relationship where they're talking about science and stuff and wanting to help people. And it's I feel like it's a very far cry. We'll talk more about him a little bit later in the comic, but I feel like it's a very far cry from Rice Ifans. I'm a scientist, not a cripple. From the
Yeah,
first Amazing movie.
they're not even the same character. It feels like this is just such a more like testament to the character and what he is and who he is. But yes, the artist formerly known as the Lizard and Peter team up here, researching a solution to help them solve the mystery of the Rhino's impervious hide. Uh, However, they come to the determination in this process that this brings the risk of the exposure to these chemicals to work on this might trigger the re-lizardification process. But Curtis, he's a man of science, he's a man of ethics, and he knows that the Rhino needs to be stopped. And if this is what it takes, this is what it takes. So they formulate this chemical concoction to integrate into Peter's web shooters, which will at the cost of turning them like a brown orange like gunk color, uh, they will dissolve the Rhino's hide off of him, and it works. He seeks out the Rhino, encounters him again, and takes him down by wrapping him in this special concoction webbing and wearing the suit away and pummeling him to unconsciousness.
Yeah, he covers him in orange tang and then melts his suit.
I would love it if he was wearing like white boxers with red hearts on them, but you can't get it 100%.
Like the fucking Paul Giamatti Rhino.
Yeah, exactly.
I am the Rhino.
Oh my god, I I would love to see him in Spider Verse, whatever, you know.
That would be, very funny.
But yeah, we've defeated the Rhino here, and meanwhile, the whole time the mystery antagonist has been watching from adjacent rooftops. Uh, Peter heads home. We're wrapping up the end of book 2 here, to get ready for a study session with Gwen, and is corralled by Aunt May to stop for a moment and finally meet a long-awaited, hyped blind date of his. Aunt May's friend Anna Watson's niece, Mary Jane, and we get our little reinterpretation here of the "Face It, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot" introduction.
I'm gonna say it again. It's really good.
hmm it does justice to like the same iconic intro from the original run. Mary Jane is great in this. It's the young version of Mary Jane. These characters are all young in this. This is college era Spider-Man stuff. But this is before MJ's more grounded and more down to earth. She's very much the girl, the party girl here. Party moves with her wherever she goes.
Yeah, this sort of transitions us into book 3, which
Mhm.
has that sort of first those first interactions with MJ and Gwen, and I wanted to talk about one of my favorite things about this comic, which I think it's really good at sort of highlighting those differences between Gwen and MJ, because there's not a whole lot of Spider-Man media where the two of them are together and interact for a long period of time.
Right. There's
Uh,
just not a lot of
adapta-
time there for that.
Adaptations outside of the comics, uh, but because they're it understands that they're very fundamentally different people. Gwen is a lot more like Peter. Uh, she's a lot more. I don't know what the best word for, like. I don't want to say like demure, but
No, it's a good word for it.
something along those lines. But whereas MJ is in this era sort of the big time party girl, wherever she goes, the party follows. And I think that the sort of interplay between the two of them, and then also when Pete gets thrown in the mix, I think it's really really good, and it's the heart of this comic, and it's why it works so well.
hmm For sure. We do get a great little introductory moment here where Mary Jane meets with Peter at the gang's hangout, the whatever bean, the jive
Yeah,
bean,
it's like
Java
it's
bean,
like a the Coffee Bean Barn.
the
That's the
coffee
name.
bean barn. The classic, the New York staple.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1, not number 1, number 3. No, number 4. Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 4.
I wonder if they have singing waitresses.
The the back pages after the main story is over. It's the Coffee Bean Barn. It's very funny.
I'll have to commit that to memory. Yeah. Uh, Flash Thompson spends a little time there flirting and getting rebuffed by MJ, the new addition to the group. Uh, Gwen kind of knows, competition slash a comrade when she sees it and plays the whole scenario very, very cool. There's not a lot of like cattiness here. Uh, Peter's friends are all pretty much in like a state of astonishment that he's making time with MJ, who by all accounts is not quite Peter's like speed. You would presume she's a little more like bodacious than a girl you would think Peter would be interested in or able to
Bodacious.
bag. It's a good word for it, I think. Uh, when a news report about the lizard comes across the TV there at the coffee bean barn, Peter, you know, is immediately like, "Oh God, all right! Not only do we have a situation here, this is a Kurt Connors situation. I really got to act on this." But it's Mary Jane that suggests to Peter that he goes to chase down the action with her in tow. So they leave the party and they hop on his motorcycle and head into town. We get a great little moment here where MJ like sweet talks the cop, distracting him.
As they ride up on their motorcycle, we have this another splash page of Peter riding his motorcycle with Mary Jane, and she says, "Wee-ha! Come on, Peto! Can't this thing move any faster?"
We ha. I
Peto.
oh
That's
my,
that's great. I love that.
it's classic. It's of his time, I
It's
guess.
very
I don't.
it's a very 1960s thing to say.
Yeah, to say the least. Like I said, Mary Jane sweet talks a police officer into distraction enough to let Peter pass the police barricade. He heads down into the station that the lizard has been sighted at. I think it's a subway station or something. He's already, Spider-Maned up. He spots Dr. Connor's wife and son worriedly looking around for him at the station. So Spider-Man reassures that he's going to help locate Mr. Connors. God, he went to school. Sorry, Dr. Connors. And help him get back to normal. So that's when he descends down into the tunnels where the lizard was last spotted. His spider sense goes off. Always happy to see that. We get some great lizard versus Spider-Man action sequence here. A lot of great tail whipping stuff. Just classic lizard trying to kill you action. I like the lizard a lot as far as like the minor and side Spider-Man villains go. I realize he's just like it's not a very original design lizard crazy scientist man in a lab coat, but come on, it's a giant lizard. It's
Lizard in a
what do you
lab
want?
coat, I feel like it's kind of an original design.
What do you want? It's great. It's great. Uh, they fight a lot. They fight hard, and then a train eventually separates them from either side of the tracks. Uh, where the mystery man, our main antagonist, has been stalking Spider-Man throughout all of this and hides down there and promises the lizard safe passage, a way out of here. And the lizard doesn't trust him at first very much, but does decide to take him up on the offer and disappear from the vicinity, ending the fight. Peter, is disappointed by this and decides to head back to MJ. A little battered, a little worse for wear from the fight with a big bruise on his eye, which earns him a kiss from MJ. He goes from here to at a little weird moment where, like, what does she call him, her guy or something, but then takes off and is like, oh, I don't need a ride. I don't need anything. It's just, mixed signals as hell.
Yeah.
Uh, he takes off from there to the Bugle to turn the shots in and quickly go from there to Dr. Connor's office, which is where he suspects that the lizard will be going to, do his thing where he tries to turn everybody into lizards because
I don't
that's
think
what
he's
he does.
actually. Oh wait, no, he is straight up. I forgot.
Yeah, he briefly mentions it.
The lizard doesn't know that he's Dr. Connors. And it says all he knew was that Connors had access to chemicals that could make more reptile creatures. So he doesn't
And
say he's going to turn people into lizards. He just says he's going to make more lizard monsters.
he wants
But
to build a reptile army.
you know, if I was a lizard man, I would also want to build a reptile army. So I can't fault him for that.
I want to do that, and I'm not a lizard man, so let's go, I guess. Spider-Man hatches a little plot here to flush the room with reserves of liquid nitrogen to cool everything down, and with the lizard's cold blood in mind, it'll like disable him and slow him down long enough to have exactly to the moment and second enough time to cure his lizard state with lizard serum and revert him into a normal person the very moment his family comes through the door to his
Yeah,
office.
it's all in half a page, 4 panels. That's the comics compressing time for you, I guess. It's just bang,
Yeah.
bam, 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 done.
When I said earlier about one of these fights being very strangely paced, this is the one I was talking about. It's not a gripe, so to speak. It's like said about like the compression of time. It's just it feels very convenient. And if there's one moment I have in this whole comic, it's just that idea of like, oh god, well that was quick, that was great, good timing. How are you guys? Don't mind the fact that this room is 20 degrees. Don't mind like the fact that it looks like Lizard and Spider-Man fought in here. How are you, Billy? It is what it is.
How you
Um,
doing, champ?
Peter goes back home to find Harry Osborn on his porch and waiting for him outside. His friend is there to make him an offer to move in with him. Norman Osborn, being the ever precocious landlord that he is, I suppose, on top of everything else, has an apartment in town that he will let Peter and Harry live in rent free near the ESU campus. An absolutely cavernous atrium of an apartment, just excessive.
Yeah,
You
we'll
could
see it
fit.
later. It's this like gigantic. It's got like 20-foot high ceilings, giant windows. There's not even like handrails on the stairs. It's just a massive, very 60s apartment that they live in. It's really
I
fun.
I like to imagine you could probably fit the Parker home in there multiple times over.
Probably something like
Um,
that.
but Pete says he has to talk about this with Aunt May first, and goes inside to do so. But before he's gone, Harry also makes it clear that he has an interest in Mary Jane and intends to do something about that without, without saying, so to speak, just like, "Hey, I'm gonna shoot my shot here. Hope you don't mind." But also kind of tips him off that Gwen Stacy has kind of been giving him the eye. So that's where we close
Yeah.
out about the halfway point, give or take, of our story here.
And I love how confused Peter is when Harry tells him that Gwen likes him. He's like, "What? Huh? What? What?
Are you sure? What gave you that
You
impression?
shitting me?"
Real shit. Uh, Aunt May and Peter have this little nervous talk to each other about moving on and moving out of each other's lives in this way. Peter's leaving his childhood home, the last relative he has that raised him. May's a little frail and old, and they both have their concerns, but May
And
eventually gets the. Oh, what's up?
no, you were getting. I was going to talk about Anna, but you're getting there.
Oh, you're fine. Aunt May gets the gumption to mention that she's been thinking about moving in with Anna Watson, her longtime pal, and Peter eagerly gives the idea his blessing. Kind of two birds, one stone, very convenient for both of them. Aunt May encourages him to move in with Harry, but also, is also laying on thick the romantic advice about Mary Jane. Um, we get a great little cutaway here to the municipal prison where they just keep all the villains together, I guess. That's how prison works. And we have Adrian Toomes himself, the elderly vulture, going into a heart attack, a state of cardiac arrest on the floor during
Yeah,
chow time.
he chokes
Uh,
on a T-bone and he's dying.
yeah, he's down for the count, we think. He's laying there near death, and another fellow convict named Blackie Drago sidles up, like right up in his dying face, and
Yeah,
and
he just
shakes
gets up
him
and
down.
he's like, "Tell me why you hid the fucking vulture suit, you son of a
I
bitch."
I know you've got a spare set of wings, old man. Where are they? And for some fucking reason, Toombs tells him. I
Well, he
don't
thinks he's
know.
gonna die.
Yeah, might as well, I guess.
He's a little
Uh,
delirious.
Peter, well, we cut away from this scene once this has happened. Peter is escorting Aunt May to Anna Watson's house, where we see Mary Jane about to be picked up for a date with Harry Osborn. A great little moment there, I think, where Aunt May is like makes a little side comment about not liking that Harry Osborn boy so much, even though the other day, like to Peter, she was like, "Oh yeah, move in with your friend. It's great. It's great."
No,
Ugh.
she can smell the goblin on him.
Yeah, well, you can see it on him too. He looks like a goblin, this version of Harry. Uh Peter tells him that he's decided he is going to move in with him after all. He hasn't seen the place yet. There's an upcoming housewarming party that they're trying to set up, which is where Peter intends to get the lay of the land for the first time. Um we cut back to the prison again, and the mystery man is back up to his tricks. He aids Blackie Drago in assisting in bursting out of jail and locating the spare set of vulture wings, which are in like an X marks the spot location past the bridge in somewhere. It's
Yeah,
very
it's like
vague. They just
it's like the
chose.
bridge. It's like the bridge in Beetlejuice that he takes him to.
Yeah, kinda. That he just kind of vaguely digs in the snow for a while until he finds it. Um, they talk about a deal they have for a little while before Blackie Drago takes off in flight, evading a hail of policeman bullets as they're caught doing this. We get our sequence of Peter as Spider-Man heading towards the housewarming party at the new place. It's Harry, MJ, Gwen, and Flash waiting there, as always. MJ and Gwen are playing pool, and Flash is gazing out of the window where he sees Spider-Man and ever the, giant spider fan. freaks out, has a little moment about it. But the
Yeah.
girls don't see him and poke fun at the jock, with his little Spider-Man obsession. The party is kind of dull. Peter isn't there yet, and everyone's waiting for him. So they decide to do what people in the '60s, what hip young kids in the '60s did, and just put on some bebop and start dancing.
Oh yeah. And they
Just
if you, in the trade paperback they show off like a little sketchbook where they show that picture of Gwen dancing is like almost like 1-to-1 a panel from a comic. It's Stan Lee, a middle-aged man trying to write what he thinks that the youth do in the 60s, which is very fun.
and then they danced for 2 hours,
And then
waiting
they
for Peter.
danced they danced the Charleston. People still do that, right?
They did the jitterbug right after. Peter is by again, kind of toying with Flash, and is swinging by when he's taken by surprise. His web is cut by a passing vulture wing. Gwen and MJ are wondering what's taking Peter so long, and we cut from that to Peter being beaten down by this winged villain, just getting the absolute crap knocked out of him as he's wont to do. Uh, Blackie Drago, this new vulture, pummels him for a while and leaves him in a crumpled mess on top of the roof, dazed in a snowdrift.
And Spider-Man gives a really funny line when Blackie first like reveals himself. Spider-Man says, "Don't you bad guys have a union or something to keep this from happening? Trademark infringements, a copycat clause." I think that's really funny.
The whole idea behind like the Guild of Calamitous Intent, I guess.
Well, hey,
Pe-
the bad guys gotta have a union too.
Precisely. Uh, Peter, kind of gathers himself there. He's left wondering what Gwen must be thinking of him right at this moment, and that leaves us closing out book 4 with Blackie Drago leaving, thinking he has killed Spider-Man, but very much has not.
He in fact says, "Ha, I won. Spider-Man is dead."
Yeah, I don't know how Peter, Mr. Quips, sat there and didn't go, "No, I'm not." Just something
Well,
like
he's
that.
trying to lick his wounds. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself.
Hard to resist the urge. I don't know. At the beginning of this next issue, Peter kind of shambles up to his new house for the first time. This new pad, suffering from the defeat at the hands of this new vulture. Harry greets him. It's dark and dim in there. Everyone's already left for the night. Peter is way late for this party. Harry kind of hand waves everything away. Is like, "Oh yeah, you're probably taking pictures of Spider-Man or something. You're working late, whatever." And Peter goes to bed and passes out. The Mystery Man, meanwhile, notes that Spider-Man, while declared dead by the Vulture, has survived their encounter and begins doing some further tracking from there. He finds himself going towards the municipal prison ICU, where the Vulture, who what okay, it was a heart attack, but he was poisoned, right? Is that what we're dealing with here? Something like that? Because this
Something like
sequence
that, I
just deals
guess.
with an antidote of some sort. Rather than
Yeah.
administering this antidote via like the IV bag or just poking him, he pulls out a slender little blowgun and a dart, and administers this antitoxin this way, demanding Adrian Toomes help him succeed where Blackie
Yeah.
Drago failed. And it's just like, what the fuck,
He
man?
shoots a blow dart at him, which might reveal to you if you're a keen-eyed reader, who the Mystery Man actually is. Because who the
It's
fuck else would use a blow dart against to heal someone?
it's Blowgun Man, the classic Spider-Man villain.
The classic Spider-Man villain, right up there with Big Wheel,
That you don't remember them from annual number whatever.
number 85.
The next day, past this, Mary Jane and Gwen are visiting a sick, bedridden Peter, attempting to win his attention and affection. Uh, what is I know what Gwen does. What does MJ do? She brings soup, right?
MJ brings soup, and Gwen brings over Huck Finn. And Peter is like, "Oh, I remember Huck Finn. Uncle Ben used to read that to me when I was sick." And Gwen's like, "I know. Aunt May told me that Uncle Ben used to read you Huck Finn when you were sick." It's really funny.
working that nostalgia angle hard. It's killer. Peter, he's trying to figure out what the hell to do here when who else but Blackie Drago should fly by his window post bank heist with a comical giant canvas sack of money of stacks of dollar bills with a big dollar sign on the outside flying
Yep.
by. We get this great little moment where Peter has to be like, "Oh well, I need privacy and rest," and their
Yeah.
face.
Peter's like, oh, I need I need to rest. I'm very sick. And there's this panel. There's no dialogue. It's just Gwen and MJ looking at Peter, and they have these like dead-eyed, like, is this dude for real expressions? And it's really funny.
It's fantastic. They leave in a huff, gathering up everybody else to head out to this event, this show they're all going to see hours in advance now because they don't, they've made time for Peter that he's not cashing in. Peter reluctantly changes into his Spider-Man garb and heads outside into the snowy day to
And he, I love that he's like watching. Did we talk about that the other vulture showed up and is fighting Blackie?
yeah, I was gonna do it.
He's like standing there in his Spider-Man costume, like he doesn't have his mask on. He's standing there staring out the window, and like the two vultures are fighting like a foot from his window. He's like, "Oh, I gotta do this shit again." And I love that neither of the vultures notice him standing there. It's really funny.
Oh shit, here we go again. But yes, both vultures are now in midair combating each other. Adrian Toomes now freed from the intensive care unit, dogfighting his Padawan
Would-be
learner, I
successor.
guess. He tries to Spider-Man tries to break up the fight and swings Blackie into the side of a building at one point, knocking the bag of cash from his hand, but also dislodging a hefty piece of concrete from the building. They fall in quick succession, and the bag of money falls in front of a pedestrian below, Flash Thompson, who, tries to go for the bag of money. The piece of concrete is heading towards him, and Spider-Man goes out of his way to go down and rescue him. And a great big panel here, referencing Amazing Fantasy 15. It's pretty gratuitous. It's the pose.
A
It's
little
the art
gratuitous,
style.
but
It's all
I
there.
think it works.
It's fun. It's personally, I think, my favorite panel of the comic, which is, I thought my
It's a good
favorite would have
choice.
been something more poignant towards the end or something. But I really, it's about the dialogue for me at the bottom when Peter says, "Sometimes I do realize that God has a sense of humor, and I actually get the joke." It's just that's such a
That's a really
Spider-Man
good.
quote to me. I
That's a really
love
good
it.
Peter line.
I don't know. It speaks volumes. Um. So yes, he's captured. He saved Flash, uh, and they settle down for a second, and he implores Flash to take the bag of cash back to the bank. This little act of heroism and sacrifice has inspired our young Mr. Thompson to do some soul searching and contemplate heroism from here.
Yeah, and even Flash is really good in this comic. Everyone is
Oh yeah,
very funny and well
no,
written,
yeah.
and they get all the characters. And I think you've talked about how you've never really found Flash Thompson to be a super interesting character, but
Yeah,
yeah,
across
you
all the different versions of him between, what we get in the MCU and good old Eugene from the Amazing. Even back in I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight me neither.
take the picture,
Uh, I'm not gonna take the picture.
take the
Across
picture.
all the flashes we've gotten across all the mediums, he's insufferable by design, but like they do it so well here with reminding you of like how he loves Spider-Man and doesn't like Peter so much. They work that angle to a degree where it's correct, but it's not overbearing. It's never too much.
Yeah,
And they roll his like future plans that he's about to announce soon from this event, and pretty well too. They hit all the nails right on the head. It's great. Good Flash Thompson stuff here. Um, but yeah, Spider-Man heads back into the fray and delivers this simultaneous knockout to both vultures in the fight. Once this is all wrapped up and completed, Peter heads back to the bachelor pad, coming downstairs to join the girls and Harry, who are waiting to receive an imminent announcement from Flash. He's going to join the army because that's what heroes do. I guess.
you know it's the '60s, And Stanley's a middle-aged man. He's like, what do heroes do? They join the army.
Good for you, Flash. Enjoy Saigon, I guess. Uh, way to go, Captain Thompson. That's the big announcement. Outside the window, the mystery man is clutching a piece of Spider-Man's costume, and that was left behind in the scuff in the fight, and sniffing it for a scent, gazing at the kids gathered and enjoying their evening, closing out book 5, taking us into the final issue of this run of Spider-Man Blue. We get this mystery guy sitting by and watching big tape reel footage of Spider-Man fighting all of the animal-inspired villains that we've seen him fight over the years. He goes, the Scorpion, the Octopus, the Rhino and Lizard and Vulture, and he's studied their moves and Spider-Man's abilities, and it's now time for him to do the hunting because, spoiler alert, guys, he's Kraven the Hunter,
Oh
the
my
mystery
God,
man.
it's Kraven the Hunter.
The
Who would have
giant
known?
muscle-bound weirdo in the fur coat was Kraven the Hunter.
Who'd have thunk?
We get a little scene, a little pre-party scene of Harry and Peter enjoying some roommate time, just hanging out and shooting the shit. Harry is too lazy to go retrieve his own aftershave lotion, so he asks Peter for some of his, which will,
And
gum up the works later.
did you talk about the Valentine?
I left it out. Jeez, how did I do that again?
Again.
Yeah, wow, you would have thought. Yeah, that's this is here, right? When they talk about that.
Yeah, and Peter gets a Valentine that isn't signed. It just has a smiley face on it.
Little blue
And he
smiley
just
face.
assumes it's from Aunt May or somebody else. Doesn't really think much about it, and then he gives Harry his aftershave.
Peter's very smart, by the way. He's very smart.
Very smart.
Yeah, they're freshening up for the party, and the girls arrive. Both of them look fantastic, and Peter and Harry look like Peter and Harry. The rest of the overflow party crowd rush over to Harry and Peter's place, and properly fill it up this time. It's kind of a going away / congratulations Flash thing. I think he's mentioned he's done basic training at this point. Harry mentions to Peter at a point during the party that Norman Osborn has called and was asking after Peter, which creates a little bit of tension there. Why the hell is our good old amnesiac Norman calling after him? What's going on there?
Yeah, we're very concerned.
And Kraven the Hunter, ever the master of subtlety, wearing his giant lion leotard brown diaper getup,
looking like a Caesar's Palace performer, busts right through the window and just slams onto the ground and demands that Spider-Man is here.
Yeah, demands a Spider-Man fight. We get quite a few people going for that. He makes an immediate beeline for Harry Osborn, mistaking his scent for Spider-Man, and kidnaps him in front of everybody and leaps out the window. Peter stammers out this great little camera pictures bugle Spider-Man excuse. It changes into his outfit.
What does he say?
Ditches everybody.
He says,
It's great.
camera, bugle, photos, Spider-Man. And then there's another great shot of Gwen and MJ with "Are you fucking kidding me?" expressions on their faces.
They get a lot of opportunities to make that face in this comic.
And Peter's narration says, "I wish I could ask you now. Did either of you ever buy my pathetic attempts at excuses?"
Hard to, Kraven is convinced that Harry is Spider-Man by his scent and is threatening to toss the boy to the ground below, which, like, if he was Spider-Man, like, what the fuck do you think that's gonna do, Kraven? Spider-Man shows up and begins to, knock around a very confused Kraven who's like, "Oh God, what the fuck, Spider-Man?" Peter razzes him for this a bit. It's a very funny sequence. They're fighting in like a half-constructed building, like like in the where the walls aren't, but there's entrances. And who should come in through the entrance? Who should come in through the entrance but Norman Osborn, who just
Norman
is
Osborn
there.
rides the sweatiest man alive. Norman Osborn rides up in an elevator. It's like, stop, leave him alone. I'm here.
Fresh out the do-rag, Norman Osborn shows up
with his waves.
and he's demanding to know what's going on. Harry, get away from here. Harry, where's my son, Harry? Blah blah blah. And Craven looks up and kind of recognizes him, I suppose. Giving Spider-Man the opportunity to knock him out before he can speak any further. Leaving Craven like stammering out something about an honor contract with the Goblin and a debt that was owed to him before he's down for the count. And we get good old sweaty Norman gleefully thanking Spider-Man for saving his son, but also going, plenty of that. Overcome by the emotion of it all. And he leaves with Harry, Harry taking him in tow to clean him up. Peter heads back home to rest, hopefully, but Gwen is waiting for him in his room, and this is kind of the emotional climax of the entire novel, where him and Gwen are together for the first time, just them, and he gives this little emotional soliloquy about how he gave all of him to her that night, and it's just a
Yeah,
very touching, very, very great moment.
and it's revealed that Valentine that Peter got was from Gwen, and they
Hmm.
kiss, and it's a really good scene.
Very special Be My Valentine moment. Good stuff. This kind of wraps up the flashback and pulls us back to the ending narration from Peter here, recording these final thoughts to Gwen on the tape recorder and going on about, the change that came about in his life from losing and loving her and all that. Just hope this is all in service, he says, of somebody finding it someday and remembering Gwen. He doesn't want there to be no record of her, no memory of her, that just he carries forever.
Yeah, he talks about how after Gwen died, he was very, very rude to Mary Jane, but then it ended up sort of grounding her in a way,
Hmm.
and making her realize how short life could be, and having her mature a little bit, and it sort of strengthened their relationship. And he realizes that if Gwen hadn't passed, then he would have never really been able to have a real relationship with Mary Jane.
Hmm.
Just as Mary Jane walks into the attic that Peter's in.
Yeah, it's at this moment that on Valentine's Day, this late in the evening, we get our look at this haggard, disheveled, thoroughly depressed,
I
and through the
love
emotional ringer Peter.
I love this panel with Peter where his like half his face is in shadow. He looks so haggard as
His
Mary
dead
Jane walks in.
eyes. He's very he's just broken is a good word for him here. He's let it all out. He's in a state of like depressed catharsis. And he seems to be expecting Mary Jane to be up, he's spent the day of romance locked away in the attic crying over his dead college girlfriend, years into this marriage. But MJ, who is also like bathed in blue in this panel, even her like iconic red hair that we've seen for the entire comic is, just this subtle shadowy black blue. She just kind of gives him a kiss and tells him to tell Gwen that she loves and misses Gwen too, and leaves him to do his thing, finish it off and come downstairs when he's ready. So he signs off on that year's message to Gwen, and makes some remarks about Valentine's Day and feeling blue. And uh, I know you have a lot of love for this last panel, so you can talk about it if you want.
Yeah, there's at the end he's finishing off the recording, and he says for the last line of the comic, he says, "And I long for a time when a girl I knew with an incredible smile and so much good in her heart made me think life can be great." And then it cuts to the last panel, which is my favorite panel in the book and maybe one of my favorite comic panels ever, which is Peter pressing stop on the tape recorder, and on top of the tape recorder is just a four-panel photo booth picture of Peter and Gwen. It's it's just a really good, really really good panel. I love this. I love this comic so much.
Yeah, it definitely earned its place in my like, oh yeah, oh you want to read Spider-Man, read Spider-Man Blue. It's I don't know. I'm gonna be plugging it for a long time from here on out, I think.
Yeah. Uh, Alex, do you have any fun facts for this comic book?
So with this being a bit of a different media than a film or TV production, there's not so much behind the scenes like resources I have. As far as trivia or fun facts go, it's mostly just stuff I was able to find about like very little like plot inconsistencies. Stuff like, we get a lot of great little Robbie Bugle moments here, but apparently at this point in the comic run, Robbie hadn't been introduced as a character yet. So no, little anachronism there. But it's a comic book, and what are you gonna do? Have a story with the Daily Bugle in it that doesn't have Robbie? It's asinine. Uh, the circumstances around the Green Goblin losing his memory are a bit different. Like that whole setup is, you know, I don't mind fudging things a bit for the service of the story. It is what it is. Aside from that, there's just a little bit of timeline weirdness. Whereas in this comic, Peter comes from a fight with the Rhino to meet MJ and go towards the Lizard. Whereas in the original run of comics, it was taking MJ towards the Rhino. Just, little stuff like that. You can never expect him to get everything 100% right with this kind of stuff, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, just not a terrible amount of trivia here that I'm aware of. If I did miss anything that you think people should know about this, if you're listening, feel free to correct me and remind me in a DM or a tweet or something like that. We have all those socials and all. Email.
Yeah, it's the sort of it covers, I think, what the issues of 40. It's in the 40s.
Yeah, like 41 to 44, that neighborhood.
That sort of very early Ramita era, and it gets to the heart of everything. It's not super focused on continuity and stuff. But
Right.
I don't think for this we're really gonna do any sort of rankings. Because I mean, once we do No Way Home, we're gonna put that in the final movie ranking. But for this season, because we have so many disparate things, I don't think there's really a need to do a ranking thing. But Alex, what are your sort of overall thoughts on this comic?
It's just a lot of what I've said already. I think this comic, it does a great service to this story, and sheds a lot of light on a lot of the things that Peter has been through. Like we all know he's a tragic guy. There's a lot that goes wrong in his life, Parker luck and all that. But the exploration of like the effect of Gwen's death, not on just himself but on other people, is was worth exploring with this kind of thing, I think. And like we've said a lot, it gets almost every single character that it brings up and discusses and plays around in this plot. They get it correct. It it's I can't imagine an immediate newcomer would have a great time with this right off the bat, just because it seems to help. It hopes you command like a working knowledge of all the events and all these things that these characters have already been through. But if if it is something that piques your interest, I would highly, highly recommend it. I like I said, this was my first seriously reading this and ruminating it and letting it like digest. And I sincerely, sincerely enjoyed it, as sad as it was. I read it like in the dark last week with my headphones on, listening to like ODST soundtrack saxophone music, and it was just perfect.
That's a good
Uh,
soundtrack for it.
it was great. It broke my fucking heart, but it was great. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed Spider-Man Blue, and I know I will be reading it again multiple times in the future.
Yeah. I've said it before on the podcast and outside of it, but I would probably say that this is my favorite set of Spider-Man comics. It's great action. There's really funny dialogue. There's beautiful art, and I don't think I talked about this earlier, but the one thing that this comic gets right the most is also the one thing that sort of separates Spider-Man, I think, from all the other superhero comics and things, and that's really, really great interpersonal drama.
Yes.
There's action, there's humor, there's all this other stuff, but really these are comics about characters and their relationships between each other. It's just about people,
Absolutely.
and that it's very telling that the climax is not a big fight sequence. It's two people you know in love together. It's really, really good, and for my money, I'd say it's the sort of the ideal Spider-Man story. I love this comic so much.
Completely agreed. They do a lot at that ending with MJ and Peter saying a lot without actually saying out. MJ never actually says like, "Wow, Peter, it really is great that Gwen's death was able to help me, Mary Jane Watson, find grounding and become a normal person. They don't hit you over the head like that. You're meant to like sit there and draw your conclusions and understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of
It's
there's really great nonverbal cues there in the art.
It's great. It's subtle in all the right places. It's a joy to look at all over. As sad as it is, even the blue stuff is just it's gorgeous
it's a masterpiece.
for sure. Absolutely, big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got a question or a comment that you want us to read on next week's episode, because we did not get any letters this week, be sure to send it to us at our email address, spideysignalspodcast@gmail.com, or you can shoot us a DM on our Twitter at SpideySignals. DMs are open. I have ensured multiple times that they are. But shoot us a message. We'll read it after we give our final thoughts. Next week, we're going to cover the first half of the first season of the spectacular Spider-Man. So until then, stay responsible. Bye.
Yeehaw!